Hey, this is Bill Varney from FishTheSurf.com and your saltwater guide with your Thursday, July 24th surf fishing report. So gosh, surf fishing once again remains great. Nothing out of the ordinary here. We knew it was going to be good this summer after it was so good this spring, and it was even good this winter also. So that's really good news. One thing that anglers have been battling with for the past really several weeks, but in particular in the last week, has been all this kelp in the water and the eelgrass. I know that has slowed a lot of anglers down. And the reason for that is that we're not seeing any big swells come from the south and wash that either ashore or push it into piles in different places along the beach or slightly offshore. So we should see some bigger surf coming up from Mexico in the next month or so, and that should really help to clean up the water. But really all the way up and down the coast, we're seeing those issues with kelp. So be patient, try to find areas where there's less kelp, and remember, when you get kelp on your line, fish are not going to bite. So reel in immediately, remove all the kelp, and cast back out. Well, today I want to talk a little bit about how I'm going to be gone next week. I'm going out to Cedros Island to go halibut, sea bass, yellowtail, calico bass fishing. So I won't have a report next week, but I will report in the week after with all the info from down there and in the surf for sure. And then the other thing is I want to remind everybody to hang on till the end of the video here. I'm going to give a very important tip about stingrays today. So starting up in Santa Barbara, once again, we've had that kelp eelgrass issue up there. It has had a tendency to slow things down over the last week or so. Another thing is that we're coming up tonight on the first night of the Grunion run. So that's been missing over the last week too, and has slowed fishing down a bit. But from Gaviota all the way down to La Conchita, during this period of time, there's been really good perch fishing. Tons of palm-sized perch, and then perch up to 13 inches for individuals that are fishing near rock structure. That's where the big perch are this time of year. They're hunkered down next to rock structure, just offshore. And if you want to catch a big fish this time of year, now's the time to do it by fishing right adjacent to where rocks meet sand. So that fishing's been good up there, really good for perch fishing. The white sea bass, the halibut fishing has slowed down. There were some sublegals that came in this week. That wasn't too bad. But the good news up in Santa Barbara is there's been a lot of corbina seen out in the surf. Now there's a few anglers that are concentrating on those, and they've had good luck with soft shell sand crabs and fishing really light gear for those corbina. So although the corbina are small in Santa Barbara now, and they will get bigger and bigger and bigger as we make our way to October, the fishing continues to be good up there. So then as we make our way down south into Ventura, really from that Ventura, upper Ventura area, Emma Woods, all the way through the Santa Barbara area, we've seen a lot of sardine and smelt in the surf. So that has a tendency to bring the fish in, although it at the same time provides a lot of forage for them. So that's competition for us, but that's a good sign. And we may see some of that clear out here after this current Grunion run that we're going to have coming up today and over this weekend. But Ventura continues to be good. Fishing for perch all the way up to 14 inches down there, anywhere near the jetty areas in both Ventura and then down along Oxnard has been really good in that area. Those anglers who have been concentrating on using soft shell sand crabs, bloodworms, and the fly have continued to do really well on corbina in Ventura, really all along the Ventura and Oxnard coast. It's been really good corbina fishing down there. And the fish have been really big. The biggest corbina I've seen of the year so far this year have come from Ventura. So although we're catching them really all up and down the coast now, the bigger ones have kind of concentrated in Ventura for the anglers who really know how to target those fish. So that's a really, really good sign. And then halibut fishing, although it slowed in Ventura this week, and near the Ventura Harbor, around the rock structure areas, continues to be good for anglers taking halibut there. And anglers there are using olive-colored, brown, burnt orange, darker color flukes and swim baits. Once again, where that rock structure meets sand on those edges to catch halibut in that area. So Ventura continues to be good. And I think Ventura will really turn on this weekend and into next week from this Grunion run. as we've talked before, it looks like there's less grunion down south and there'll be more grunion up north, which will really turn on that fishing when you get in the Oxnard, Ventura, Santa Barbara area. So that's really good news too. We got an amazing report this week from Malibu. So great to hear. One angler fishing in Malibu, a little bit with the sand crab, but mostly with the Lucky Craft. Just did an incredible job. He had 3 stripers to 32 inches. He had a halibut, had a couple yellowfin croaker. He had a handful of barred perch. So that fishing in Malibu continues to be good. And all of the anglers that I've talked to that are fishing Malibu are all fishing, you know, that North Malibu all the way to the Ventura County line zone. So really, you know, from El Matador, let's say, all the way up to Point Magoo seems to be the better area there in Malibu. I think a lot of people, of course, are staying away from the Palisades and the burnt out area. That would be at Malibu Pier South toward Topanga there. So I haven't heard much from there. Hopefully the water's clearing up there. But otherwise, great to hear that Malibu is doing good, and no surprise whatsoever. It gets really good there in the spring and the summer for sure. And then as we make our way down to the South Bay, you know, Hermosa and Manhattan Beach continue to crank out the corbina. I get reports almost every day from down there about how good that corbina fishing is. And although we've not had any giant fish, I think some of our bigger fish are maybe around 22 inches, lots of them in that like 12 to 18 inch range. Corbina fishing has been very good down there, and almost all the anglers have told me that they've been using soft shell sand crabs to catch those fish. 2 anglers, for example, in about an hour period of time, had 2 corbina, 6 yellowfin croaker to 18 inches, and a handful of barred perch while they were fishing down there at Hermosa with sand crabs. So it continues to be good in that Hermosa, Manhattan area. Didn't get any reports this week from Delray, but I'm sure Delray continues to be good. Really that whole stretch from Delray, Dockweiler, El Segundo, Manhattan, Hermosa, Redondo, and then Rat Beach. That whole area is holding a lot of really big yellowfin croaker and tons of corbina close to shore. So keep your eye on that for sure. That continues to get good. And I really don't see much of a change there in Hermosa till we see the temperature of the water begin to go down in a couple of months. So that will continue to be good. As we make our way down to Orange County, you know, that zone, we've talked about it a bunch, from about Belmont Pier all the way down to the Surfside area. So Belmont Pier, Seal Beach, Surfside, they have continued to kick out dozens of halibut. Now the halibut this week were almost all sublegal halibut, and we see that a lot after grunion runs. The bigger fish come in with the grunion, feed around that grunion period for 4 or 5 days, then go back offshore and feed offshore, whereas the smaller fish, in particular the smaller halibut, stay in close to shore because they feed on sand crabs and worms and other things as they basically wait for the next grunion run, which is going on this weekend. So that has continued to be good in that area. Sunset Beach, it really was amazing this week. It had halibut there, sublegal halibut, had corbina on that Sunset Surfside area. Those have been really good. And then the really big news down there was a nice bonefish, about a 3-pound bonefish, caught on a honey badger grub. Those grubs are amazing. I've seen them catch corbina, halibut, obviously a bonefish now, barred perch. On the honey badger bait, he caught that big bonefish. That's the biggest one I've seen north of San Diego. I've seen one all the way up in Torrance Beach a couple of years ago. So they're making their way north. It was probably over a decade ago I caught my first ones down in San Diego Bay, and now they're making their way up the coast. And one thing about those bonefish, you know, once they get established, I fish for bonefish all over the world, in Hawaii, Aruba, Fiji, you name it, all over the place. And those bonefish, you know, they get to 10, 15 pounds, and they are amazing in the surf. So look forward to them growing over time, and maybe in another decade, our whole coast will be littered with those 10-pounders. I'd love for that to happen. So that's what's going on down in Orange County. And then when we're looking at the zone from about Bolsa Chica all the way through the Newport Jetties, then down on the beach at San Clemente, just north of the San Clemente Pier, all the way up toward Dana, those areas have been really good for corbina in the last couple of weeks. And the reason that they're good is anglers are downsizing their equipment. They're fishing like 4-pound fluorocarbon with about a 2-foot leader, and they're going out the day or 2 days before they go fishing and collecting sand crabs so they can get 1 or 2 dozens of the perfect sand crab that they need for fishing corbina in the surf. That has really been the secret for them, is the right bait and the right equipment at the right time. So that continues to begin. We continue to see lots of corbina all along the coast, both being caught and being seen, of course, in the surf. So that is really, really good news. Another thing too is one of the tricks that some anglers have been using for these corbina, something I certainly used in the past, is that they'll use a uni-to-uni rig where they have their main line with a uni-to-uni knot to 4-pound fluorocarbon leader. They'll use a tiny pinch-on weight, like a split shot or a gremlin weight, and that's all they'll use in the surf. They're basically fly lining a sand crab in the surf and allowing it to wash in and out with the surf, gives it a much more natural look, and they have a better chance at a bigger fish. So rather than fishing the Carolina rig with a 1/2 ounce or 3/4 ounce sinker, try going with the fly line with a very, very light, maybe a 1/64 ounce pinch-on sinker, and that's all you're going to need in the surf for those corbina. They feed in very close to shore. Within 10 feet of the sand, you're going to probably find 70% of all the corbina feeding. So Orange County remains good, and will continue to get better as time goes on here, as we have more crabs in the sand and the water warms up even a little bit more. And then as we make our way down to San Diego, you know, oceanside anglers in that zone, probably oceanside to Carlsbad, it's slowed down a bit, but they still have had really good barred perch fishing, yellowfin croaker fishing, a lot of corbina in that zone. So all of that's been really good down in that oceanside area. And then as we move south, Encinitas' Moonlight Beach was the hot spot this week for big corbina for an angler using sand crabs, and then a number of smaller fish under this 22-incher, around that 12 to 18-inch range, are being seen and caught all along the beach there. One of the big catches this week also was a ton of yellowfin croaker, 20 inches, and some barred surf perch at Torrey Pines for anglers fishing ghost shrimp. And of course, we've talked about ghost shrimp before, that you can pump yourself out of places like Mission Bay and all kinds of different estuaries. You have to be careful that you're not in a closed zone. And then you can also go to places like Seaforth Landing, where you can buy them fresh and alive there too. And those work really well for bait. And we talked about the transition to new baits going into the month of August. Now is the time to start considering using something like ghost shrimp and rigging up for those. So that's remained really good. And then when we go south of there to places like Mission Beach, Pacific Beach, they have still been kicking out the corbina down there, but there's been a tremendous amount of kelp and seaweed down there at the beach, made it really, really difficult for fishing. I really suggest, if you're going to fish those beaches, fish them low tide coming up to high tide, where a large majority of that kelp is just laying on the sand. If you fish there at high tide, there's going to be so much stuff in the water, and without this swell to move it out of the way, it's going to be really, really difficult fishing. So once again, in those San Diego areas and areas where you have a lot of kelp, try fishing about an hour after low tide up to high tide. And then the really big news was from the Carlsbad Lagoon this week, where one angler fishing on the bottom with an anchovy hooked into, caught, and released a 30-pound black sea bass. So that's the thing about surf fishing. Just about anything is possible in the surf. It's really quite amazing. I want to remind everybody about my newsletter. If you haven't signed up for it, it comes out once a month. Just go to fishthesurf.com, sign up on our front page. You'll get on the list for the newsletter. It comes out once a month, gives you all kinds of information, tips, techniques, fishing report. It's great stuff. You'll love to read it. Please subscribe and like if you like what I'm giving you, the report here. I really need subscribers, and I'd love to have more likes too, so help me out there. I'd really appreciate that too. Remember, the Grenion Run starts tonight, Thursday night, goes through the weekend. This is a take period, so be sure, if you need them for fishing from the shore, the bay, your boat, if you want to have Grenion, now is the time to collect them. You can collect up to 30 by hand. I just put them in a Ziploc bag when I'm at the beach. take them home, freeze them flat on a paper plate or a cookie tray to make sure that they're nice and straight when I use them for fishing. So that's going on this weekend. If you do go down to the Grunion runs, please send me a report whether you see them or not as to what beach you were at and what you saw down there. I'd really appreciate that, along with all of your surf fishing reports. I really appreciate those, and please keep those coming for sure. The other thing I wanted to talk about is a little bit about stingrays. Now, there's been some real issues caused by the stingrays over the past really 30 years, and it's really not been talked about. And in addition to that, there's another issue. So when you're surf fishing, and this time of year when the water's warm, you'll often find stingrays in the water who will sting you, and their neurotoxin is very painful, and you'll use hot water to reduce that effect of the neurotoxin. The colder water you go into, the more it will hurt. The warmer water, the less it will hurt. So keep that in mind if you get stung by the stingray. But when you're going out into the surf, remember to shuffle your feet on the way out. And the big thing is when a lot of people get stung is when they're on their way in. If you hook a fish and you start backing up and backing toward the dry sand to fight that fish, shuffle your feet on the way in also, because often you'll take a step back and you'll step right on a stingray when you don't expect it. Well, recently a beachgoer who was a San Diego resident, now lives in Texas, came to visit San Diego, went out a couple of weeks ago at Black's Beach, got stung by a stingray, and within 1 day he had a staph infection. And that is caused by the dirty bacteria in the water. Now, it's from a lot of different sources. Runoff can cause it. Sewage can cause it by the outfalls that we have in the different sewage plants, El Segundo, Orange County, San Diego County. But a big cause of it has got to be this slough, the Tijuana Slough, with all the sewage coming out of the ocean, and then south swells pushing that north, and then maybe fish like the stingray was down in that stuff, swam out of it, because fish have fins, of course, and brought the bacteria with it. The individual who got this staph infection was told that because of the swelling and what happened, if he hadn't have come into the emergency room the next day, he would have very well lost his foot and possibly his leg from the staph infection. So please do not go into the water, regardless of where you are in California, if you have an open cut. And if you get stung by a stingray and the next day it's overly swollen, immediately go to the emergency room and have them look at it and make sure that they get out, you know, if there's anything left in it, which is normally what happens. They're going to look through it and make sure that there's no particles left underneath the skin. They're going to make sure to clean that out and make sure that if you have an infection of some type, that they can immediately start working on it. Another thing too is if you're stung by a stingray at the beach, immediately go to the lifeguard tower. The lifeguard station will most likely have a place for you to be treated there to get rid of the pain, and then you can watch for that swelling. And like I said, the next day if it's overly swollen, definitely immediately go to the emergency room. So thank you for watching today. It's been a great surf fishing report. It's been great surf fishing over the last week. I'm not going to see you next week, but until the week after when I see you right here, good luck on the sand.